guys, my name is Johanna. For those of you who are new here, welcome. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. A big shout out to my channel members for supporting my channel. Thank you. All right, so I recently picked this up. Thank you so much to Colorist Jen. She had reached out to me if I had this. I've been actually eyeing this for a while. I know I've seen it on Poet's channel. I've definitely seen it on some other channels. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I wanted this and I want to do a buddy color with Jen. And so I did pick this up. This is Color Me Enchanted, a coloring book by Masha Dians and Gala Lazuli. And I'm just going to do a flip through with you guys. If you're interested in a flip through with just no talking, you can certainly find that on YouTube. Just Google Color Me Enchanted Coloring Book. But I thought I would give you some of my thoughts on how I'm going to be approaching this particular coloring book. I did pick this from Amazon. I will link it below. It is an older coloring book from 2017. So there's definitely still stock, although it might be a little bit harder and harder to find. This reminds me of, I think her name is Stephanie Law. I think that's her name. The artwork kind of reminds me of that kind of fine, detailed, sketchy work. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is not a coloring book that is going to be a pencil book for me. It is double-sided, but the way that the book is set up, I feel like predominantly the right-hand page, I will be doing an alcohol marker and I will sacrifice the other page. It does give you the story of what it is, and I really like that, as well as the country of origin. So, like this here, this is actually an interesting composition, but it's not interesting enough for me to not do this in alcohol marker, because that is my preferred medium. The paper is a bit thin. Now, I can't see through the other side. So it's not like Amazon printed paper thin, but it definitely isn't like an Erie. I think it's even a little lighter than, or thinner by weight of like a Kirby or a Joanna Basford. I haven't worked in this yet, but I do have a buddy color with Jen, so I will be testing it out. But again, alcohol markers, it doesn't actually bother me. It is perforated, so if you are someone who likes to take your pages out, you certainly can do that. Because it is perforated, pages might start to separate as you use the book, but I would just tape them in. I don't like having my papers loose. And this is the tortoise with a pretty daughter, a Nigerian fairy tale. And see, I can see coloring this and extending out here because that is actually not difficult, and that's not difficult either. And then for this page, I don't know, I love the composition, but I'd really have to decide which of these two pages I wanted to color, because if I do this in alcohol markers, I'm sacrificing that. And I don't mind sacrificing the text, but it actually does carry over nicely into this page. So yeah, that's something I'd have to think about. But I mean, I have so many books that I am not under any illusion that I'm going to be able to color every single page in every single book that I have. So if I need to sacrifice, I'll do that. See, like this one here, I would never color this. And this one, I actually don't mind sacrificing this page if I needed to, although I don't need to because I would never color this. And that's really how I approach things. I just look in the back and the front and say, okay, is this something that I would color? I do like these artist renditions of things, because it looks like a lot of detailed work. But I mean, honestly, I would color him probably golden, and then maybe do some either gel work or gel pen work or dual hybrid metallic just to kind of highlight some of the things here. I would make her entire dress blue and then pick and choose some aspects to kind of pick out. So even though the detailing is fine, I don't necessarily feel I have to color every single tiny little detail in it. And then again, Yellow Brick Road, I'd have to decide whether or not I wanted to do that. This is, I would never color that. This is actually the buddy color that Jen and I are going to be doing for December. This also fit Olga Rani's monthly prompt of snow, because this is the Snow Queen. And so I'm looking forward to this. She's probably going to be in like light blues, just because that's how I envision a Snow Queen to be. That's my blotter page. Again, another page I would never color. This is Firebird from Russia. I think this was an interesting composition. I would be more than happy to color just this page and just leave this as a nothing. And this is another one where if I colored this in alcohol markers, and even though I'm not a huge bird fan, I think the composition is really interesting. I would not have a problem sacrificing this page and just coloring this page, right? Because that's, you know, that doesn't really bring a lot to this page right here. And that was Masha and the Bear. I love the different stories in here. Some of these I've never heard of. Now, I like the look of this, but this is not something that I would ever color. Because if I'm going to do this much work, I'd rather work in a Thomas Love Tomic book because I find those compositions a lot more interesting than this right here. Alice in Wonderland, again, I wouldn't do that at all, and I would just concentrate on this page. Now, I don't know what's going on, and I don't know why this guy, is that a cat or a rat? She seems over it on all kinds of levels, and he seems like he's dying. And I don't know the story of Alice in Wonderland enough to know who this character is, but I think this is a very interesting composition. This is nothing. I would never do any of this. The Star Maiden, it's a Chippewa, and I actually like the idea of doing a Native American coloring. And so this one, the composition is nice. You've got her, and I would actually probably want to research just to write some notes, just because you don't see a lot of Native American and specifically Chippewa, at least that I'm aware of, fairy tales in coloring books. So I love the representation in this. This is the Selkie Bride from Scotland. And I guess that's her right there. Because I'd have to look at this page really closely to see where the bodies are. Because I see arms, but then I have to figure out where the faces are. Because I think it's kind of a seal. Because she's got a human face, but a seal body. She doesn't have a face because she's turned that way. And then these have human arms, but a seal face and body. So yeah, it's an interesting composition. And it definitely flows. It's just I'd have to figure out what's what on something like this. I also don't gravitate towards water pages. So there's also that. I love this rendition of The Little Mermaid because The Little Mermaid story is actually rather dark. And this is not the cutesy Disney version looking to me. There definitely is some edginess to this that I think I prefer over the Ariel cutesy happy ending kind of story, because that's not how it works. At least not in the story. Again, a nothing page for me. I love the imagery of this Swan Lake, a Russian fairy tale. And it's very detailed and thin work, but again, I just color all the hair one color, and then if I want to kind of highlight, then I would. But I think that's really pretty. I will need to test out some mediums in here. Again, another page I would not color. I love the rendition of Cinderella. Again, even though there's fine work in here, her dress would probably be gold or pink. And then I would use either a fine liner or probably something sparkly and just kind of make all of these little things sparkle. It would take some time, but I think the effect would be really pretty. And then this one, I can take it or leave it. I don't necessarily feel it adds or detracts from this page right here. This is her dress. I would never color that. The Snake Prince from India. That's awesome. Now this definitely to me is a 2-page spread. So if I were coloring a 2-page snake spread, honestly, it wouldn't be this one. It'd probably be something from Kirby. But I do like the movement, and I do like that it's inclusive of something other than European or Western fairy tales. This is the Gypsy Queen from Mexico. I've never heard of this fairy tale as well, but I think she is very dynamic. Is that the orange peel that's making up her thing right there? I don't know, but that's really awesome. Oh yeah, immediately the dove changed back into the maiden of the orange. If I were to color this page, I'd want to look up the story to see what this actually means. Now these are interesting, but again, not subject matter that I would ever color. The Fair Maid and the Snow White Unicorn. I think this one is also a very interesting dynamic. This one, probably the biggest challenge I'd find is just making sure I figure out what belongs to her and what belongs to the background. But otherwise, very interesting composition. Would never color that. And for some of you, you might think, okay, well, if half the book you would never color, that's just a waste of money. And for some of you, that might be. For me, as long as I can enjoy the pages that I want to enjoy, then I'm fine with that. Because again, I've got a huge collection and I'd like it to be a working collection, but I'm also under no illusion that I have to love 100% of the pages, because I will never color 100% of the pages, even if I had the time, and I don't. And so this is definitely, there's value here. If I were just the kind of person who has a collection just to have one, I don't have the space, or I probably would be. Just to look at the imagery and just see that there are other stories out there that I have never been familiar with. Like I knew about Baba Yaga, but I didn't realize, I guess it's tied to that fairy tale, Vasilisi, the fair from Russia. And so, yeah, I have actually quite a few Baba Yaga coloring pages in the variety of books that I have. And I think it's interesting. Never going to color that. Beauty and the Beast. I think this is a very interesting rendition of Beauty and the Beast. I think she's really pretty. I think he's very beasty. And nothing that I've ever seen a rendition before. And so this, again, especially if there's a prompt, Olga already did one, so it wouldn't be for Olga, then I would consider coloring this. But not that. This is the Dragon Princess from China. And again, I think the most difficult part is there are several dragons here, at least 4. So dragons are generally either green or red to me. So there'd be a lot of green, red, and gold on this page. And I would just want to make sure that I keep the dragon bodies kind of tied to each other. Oh no, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 dragon faces that I see. And so that's probably going to be the most difficult part of something like this. Just figuring out what's what. Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp from Syria. So there's no people on this page. Just a really, really happy monkey. But I don't see Aladdin. And so is this the lamp? Oh no, this must be the lamp because it spreads over here. Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, also from Syria. She's really pretty, and even as detailed as this is, the background would be one color. And this would be one color, and then I could go in and do some detailed work from there, probably with a gel pen that's glittery. Would never color that. The Tsar Sultan from Russia. I think it's actually a really interesting composition. I don't know what it's about, but it's beautiful. And I love the dolphins frolicking in the sea. Now this one I do like because she's weaving something. Yeah, so I'd have to figure out which side I'd want to color. Probably this one, because I actually do prefer coloring on the right-hand side of a book. But I really do love how that looks. Yeah, so that would be interesting. This is Rapunzel, so she's got her head thrown back, and that's all of her hair. So I definitely would want to color all of that. So that kind of takes away from this. And I will have to test it. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I don't know how this paper would handle water either. So something like watercolor or paint may not work because it might buckle too much, which I'm okay with, or there might be some really intense bleed through, which I wouldn't be so okay with. But again, if I'm treating these as single-sided pages, sacrificing the other page, it really just comes down to decision making. Yeah, I'd never color that. The Bamboo Cutter and the Moon Child, I think that's really beautiful. And this would be another one that if I were to color it, it definitely would be a 2-page spread. And yep, I could sacrifice that, and I could sacrifice that. Although I think this would be really interesting in just a glittery, either red or green, just for the fine line detailed work. Snow White from Germany, and she doesn't look like any kind of Snow White that I've ever seen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, they've got all 7 dwarves. And because she doesn't look like Snow Whites I've ever seen, I think she's really interesting looking. Would never color that. The Princess and the Pea from Denmark. Again, I think a very interesting composition. That's the pea right there. She's so delicate, she can feel it. Hopefully that's not a spoiler for any of you. Again, the Princess and the Pea. I didn't realize there was a prince. Oh, if there's a princess, there's always a prince. That's how these things work. And yeah, I would actually not mind sacrificing this page and just doing this as just a 1-page spread, and then also coloring this again sometime in life. I don't know that I would color this, although as a 2-page patterny type of page goes, it is rather interesting. And then this is, oh no, that is not the cover page. And they lived happily ever after. Well, not necessarily, but it's nice to end the coloring book that way. That is Color Me Enchanted, a coloring book by Masha Dians and Gala Lazuli. I'd love to know what you think of this. I'd love to know if you have this. And as always, aloha.